Oh, good morning. Glad to see you all. It's been a busy weekend. Got some other weekends going to be quite busy too. In just a second, I'll share with you a little bit about the series we're in. I want to believe, but before we talk about that, I just want to remind you of a bunch of stuff going on. Next week's Easter. So let me just share with you real quickly about Easter, and I'll share with you the upcoming weeks after that. First, Easter, we have 3 services. We usually have 2. We anticipate a couple thousand people probably with kiddos will be in this building, and you can help us. You'll notice next week when you come in, there'll be about 100 more chairs set up in this room to make sure, and particularly that 9:30 service is pretty busy. So usually we have a 9 and a 10:45. Now next week we have an 8, 9:30, and 11. And as you notice in this crowd, usually even on a spring break week, the 9 o'clock service gets quite crowded. So a couple things I would request of you. One, get here early. If you don't mind next week, park as far away as you can. Get some extra steps in. If you can, and no pressure, don't feel shame or guilt if you can't. If you can come to that 8 or 11, that would be ideal because we're going to, the 9:30 is going to be the one where the most people are going to show up. But if you have kiddos, don't come to the 8 because there will be no kid zone and you'll be sitting with them in this service for an hour and a half. And if you usually think I preach long, have your kids sitting in your lap while I preach, and it will seem even longer. So 8, 9:30, and 11 next week. Another thing, if you don't mind, next week, and just in all weeks in perpetuity. I use that word 2 weeks in a row now. If you don't mind kind of moving to the center and making some room for folks as they show up, that'd be really great. Now, here's just the reality. Next week and every other week, there are people who show up here for the very first time. You know, for many of us, we've gone to church a while, you know the drill, but just imagine if you have never been to a church, haven't been to a church in a while, you don't know whether to expect lightning to strike, you have no idea. And then you walk into a room filled with a bunch of people, and you just dropped your kids off, they were screaming and yelling, and just all the chaos that kind of ensues with all that. And so we just want to be really mindful of folks and try to make this a nice environment for them. Now, here's the reality. We can't save people. We can't fix people. I can't fix me. I can't save me. I can't fix you. I can't save you. But what we can do is make it simple for people to see and connect to Jesus. And so every week that's what we're trying to do. And next week would just be a lot of fun to do that. And I would just encourage you to invite your friends. It'll be a little bit shorter sermon than usual because we got to get 3 in and a little more time than we usually get 2 in. So next week will be a really good week to bring a friend, tell them you'll take them to dinner afterwards, whatever you got to do, bribe them, I don't really care, just get them in here and be worth their time. So that's next week. Now, we all have a lot more going on as April and May kind of continue. Starting the following weekend, we have a couple things. One, have foster parent training for 3 straight weekends. You'll hear more about that. But if you're ready to jump into foster care over the summer, you have to get 24 hours of in-service time, and so April 27th and the first 2 Saturdays in May, we'll be having training in this church with childcare, all those things. But if you're going to go through that training, you have to go through an orientation first. And so there's a couple different options for orientation. If you've already been through one, because it's about 2.5 hours of orientation, we had one a couple of weeks ago, so we have the second round of that this Wednesday night. Or if you've never been through orientation, you're going, hey, I'd like to at least see if this is for me. This Wednesday night, starting at 5:15, you can show up a few minutes early for Cal. Grab your dinner, and there will be an orientation. That will be 2.5 hours for you to go through the whole thing one night. Be worth your time to do that. And we'll provide childcare. You can bring your kids in, grab them some dinner, and send them on into Kids Zone and jump right into that class, okay? Now, if you're going to do that, particularly if you're going to show up at 5:15 for that early class, would you just let us know on the back of the bulletin or email us just so we can be prepared for your kiddos? If you, only if you have kids. If not, you're going to show up. But if you have kiddos that you want us to hang out with during that 5:15 to 6:15, that hour that we usually don't have Kids Zone or Kids Connect, if you'd let us know that would be helpful. So then, starting just after Easter, we're going to roll out a new set of small groups. So our goal here is to get you out of rows, and what we usually say is into circles, but the circle seems a little like a confusing term because a circle implies that it's closed off, and we want to make sure that people always know they're welcome and can connect, and so we're just going to say we want to get you out of these rows and into a small group. Now, many of you think that sounds really creepy, going to someone's house, a bunch of strangers, and talking about your feelings and all that kind of stuff, and we understand. And some of you have actually been to a small group before, and you've gone, it was crazy, it was weird, it was awkward, never doing that again. Understand that as well. And I would just offer this. All of us at some point in our life have gone and gotten a haircut that was a bad haircut, right? At that point, when you got that haircut, you didn't stop, and it was bad, and you were upset about it and frustrated. You didn't decide in that moment never to cut your hair again. You just decided to find a different barber, beautician, stylist, whatever the term is, right? And so it just makes sense that sometimes the groups that you land in aren't the right fit, and that's why we're going to continue to invite you into new groups. And you have lots of questions, and you're wondering, what does a small group look like? How long do I have to be in it? All those things. And we want to answer those questions. So what's going to happen, if you have any of those questions, any question you could possibly think of, okay? On the back of that bulletin, just want you to write out that question, okay? You can write out that question and drop it in the offering bags on the way out. And this Wednesday night, there'll be a Facebook Live video, and we'll also get it on the website, on our Vimeo page, and every place you can imagine, where a crew of people, our small group team, will sit down and answer all those questions. There are no bad questions. Ask away. If you got any questions, write in the back of there, and we'll get that information to you middle of this week, okay? Then, also, the week after Easter, we start the next round of Family Promise. That's where our church jumps in and helps homeless families in this area by opening up our church building and our space to host and feed and let them stay overnight, all those things. So we need overnight hosts. We need people who can prepare meals. We need people who can eat meals with our guests. So would you let us know if you're interested in that? That starts April 28th. That's the week after Easter. So again, on the back of the bulletin, you can cover that. It'll be a lot of fun. Definitely worth their time, and we've seen some really neat things happen as a result. So that's all the announcements for today. That's a lot. Really, really excited about Easter. Now, this week, historically and traditionally in the church world, is the day that we call Palm Sunday. So if you know anything about Easter, you're probably familiar with this. If you don't. So Easter is kind of this monumental moment in the church world where Jesus just declared that he was God. People didn't like it, so they murdered him to shut him up, really. Like just to try to stop this whole thing with this guy they thought was trying to leverage control and steal their power, and he declared he was God, and it got him murdered, right? And he actually said not only to declare that he was God, that he actually came to take away the sins of the world, that he came to make everything right, to pay the punishment that all of us deserve, all that kind of stuff, to set everything right. If you've been watching the Masters this week, that you know the term mulligan. Jesus literally came to give us a mulligan, a redo, and he declared all that, and he got him killed. Now, a couple days after he gets put into a grave, he comes back to life. Only time in human history where a person has brought himself back to life, which is why we believe he's God, by the way. And as a result, every year people celebrate that Sunday as Resurrection Sunday, the day that Jesus came back to life. And that's next week, and I promise you, you should invite your friends. Even if they don't believe in this stuff, it'll definitely be worth their time. We're going to have some really good conversation, and I think it'll all make sense to us. But the week leading up to Easter is kind of this week that we kind of prepare ourselves for. It's called Palm Sunday, and basically the idea is, in Jesus' last week of life, he enters into like the Jewish capital, like the city where all the religious stuff was happening, into Jerusalem, and to come and make these declarations and set the whole world right. So he's got 7 days left to live, pretty impactful moments, and he's traveling and commuting from his buddy's house, Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, which is in Bethany. It's a 2-mile, journey, so 30, 45-minute hike, and he's making that commute most days. And on this Palm Sunday, he shows up in Jerusalem, and when he does, it almost feels like the tipping point where everything kind of is going his way. For a long time, it's been messy. People have been wondering if he's God. And this day when he enters on this baby animal, like this little donkey, this little baby colt, like this little interesting animal that hasn't been broken yet, so it should be all kind of wiry and crazy. And Jesus just enters on it, and it's absurdly peaceful. And as he's riding in, people are just celebrating. And all the disciples are looking and going, okay, this is working. This is working. Like, people are starting to believe. It's actually starting to take off. Church attendance is going to rise. Our budget's going to go up, whatever it is, right? And so all this stuff is happening, and all these people are celebrating. And the reason we call it Palm Sunday is they grabbed these palm leaves or branches, and they ripped them off, and they started waving them. And they're celebrating Jesus. And so in a lot of traditional, contexts, a lot of churches grab those things and wave the branches. Really, really some neat moments. And they kind of just to celebrate. And the term that they use when they celebrate is this term, Hosanna. And that literally means save us now. Save us, we're helpless. So all these people are declaring that Jesus is God, and they're telling them, they're asking him, they're begging him to save them. They're waving it and they're worshiping him. And so just it makes sense as we are here in Palm Sunday, we just start with that passage of Scripture. So maybe you're familiar with it, maybe you're not. So let me just read it over you and make an observation about it and then preach at you for a while. So here goes. I'm going to be reading right now from the Gospel of Luke. We're going to be in two different Gospels today, the Gospel of Luke and the Gospel of John. If you're new to the church world, those are biographers who wrote some of Jesus' story. Luke got eyewitness accounts and put together kind of this biography, we would say, by God. He organized it. John was one of Jesus' buddies who spent time with Jesus, was one of his disciples, and at the end of his life writes a biography. So these are two different instances where people tell the story of Jesus' life. The first one we're going to read is Luke, and here's right here as Jesus is entering Jerusalem. Here's what it says. When he came near the place where the road goes down the Mount of Olives, this is important. So Luke is going, hey, you know where that is. It's like going, right there on the corner of 896 and Saginaw, where you shouldn't turn left ever because it makes all the people behind you turning right. Wait. And by the way, if you do that here, just go out Louisville, go down the state, take that four-way stop. Yeah, there you go. Down the Mount of Olives, the whole crowd of disciples began joyfully to praise God in loud voices for all the miracles they had seen. So this is 3 years of ministry. This is the tipping point. This is it. Everybody's celebrating. And this is what they're saying. Blessed is the King. They're calling him King. This is important. Who comes in the name of the Lord. Peace in heaven and glory in the highest. But they are going, Jesus, you are good. So this is a big watershed moment. Everything's changed. All these people are celebrating. Watch it. King who comes in the name of the Lord. Peace in heaven and glory in the highest. Some of the Pharisees, those are the religious people who like their control and power and, have their reserved seating, all those kind of things. Some of the Pharisees in the crowd said to Jesus, Teacher, rebuke your disciples. They call you Lord and worshiping you. Tell them to stop. This is what Jesus says. I tell you, he replied, if they keep quiet, the stones will cry out. Don't have time to talk about this right now, but this is pretty neat because people do get quiet in about a week. And there's a big earthquake that happens in the middle of it, and rocks just bust open. Interesting to see. And so Jesus goes, if they stop worshiping, the stones will cry out. But then watch what he says here. As he approached Jerusalem, and he saw the city, he wept over it. Big watershed moment. People are waving branches, declaring Jesus the King. He has tamed this cult. I mean, it is an amazing moment, and there's all sorts of good here, or at least it seemed like it. Jesus has a big following of people. Things are going really well, it would seem. There's a big worship service, not a dry eye in the room, whatever. Everybody's really, really excited. And what's Jesus' response? He weeps. Wait, he just got worshiped. They're all saying what he wanted them to understand, that he was the King. He came to take away the sins of the world. He came to right things. These people in that moment are calling him King and Lord, meaning they are saying, Jesus, you are the boss of my life. This is a huge moment. And when he gets into the place he's about to spend his last week, it says he wept over it. You understand? You go, well, yeah, of course he's going to weep. He's about to die. No, this doesn't say he wept over his pain. He wept over the people that he's thinking about in the city, including the people who are worshiping him. Why in the world is he weeping? John Townsend, bright guy, one of the two authors of Boundaries, which is a book I'd recommend for all people. Christian author, really puts good stuff together, has put together this, what he calls a township leadership program, where he takes a bunch of leaders and helps them kind of do some self-awareness and mindfulness and put the scriptures with psychology to kind of get a better worldview of the world and of ourselves. And one of the things he talks about in his leadership program is he says, you should always pay careful attention to tears. In fact, he says, whenever you see tears, whether from someone else or yourself, you should pause and try to figure out where those tears are coming from. So whenever that looks like, I know dudes, you're like, I don't want to do that, right? But this idea that when you see tears, you should pause and go, okay, what's going on there? When tears well up in your eyes, whether they're tears of joy or sadness, it would make sense that you'd pause for a second because something inside of you, your body, is giving you some information that you haven't had yet. And so you should pause and go, what's that about? So it makes sense today as we see this big Palm Sunday, really, really interesting thing. We'd go, what are those tears about? Now what's interesting is there's only two places where it talks about Jesus weeping in this way, and this word wept is kind of this, it's not like this Not the weeping and wailing you think of. There's another term, and you'll see it in a little while, where it's really outward, expressive, like, like at a wedding where people are just mourning and weeping and tearing their clothes, and it's almost like this performance art, right? There's that piece where everybody else is included in it. And then there's this weeping, different Greek word, only shows up twice, where it's just Jesus in his moment shedding tears, not for other people, but because of this real sadness he feels, and he go, what is the sadness about? So, if you know much of the story, between the time that Jesus gets celebrated and worshipped here till the next week, these same people who are saying, crown him, calling him king, right? Crown him, put the crown on him, give him the, have the whole, fancy crowning service, all those kind of things. Crown him, he's king, all those kind of things, right? Within a week, the same people that are saying crown him are going to say, kill him. So while in this moment it looks really good in front of us, oh, the church is good, way to go, Jesus, what's actually happening behind the scenes is these folks over the next week are going to turn their backs on Jesus. To the point where this mob, which is what this is, in their emotionalism, and they're saying that Jesus is king, that same mob, when the tides turn, right, are going to be the same ones who say, nope, let's murder him. So within 7 days, many of the same people who are saying he's king will say, kill him. So Jesus is weeping over these people because he's looking at them and going, oh, you got caught up in the emotion and the goosebumps or the chill bumps. You leaned into this emotional belief, or other people believe it, so you believe it, and so you are saying you're Lord and King, but within a week, in your temperamental situation, you're going to turn your back on me. So all these people, when you see them talk about it in Psalms, their mouths are praising him, but their hearts are really far from him. You see, because what Jesus knew in this moment, and we would see it throughout the rest of the week, the stories in it. He knew that while in this moment because they were happy and excited and they were on the uptick in terms of their emotions, he knew that they didn't really believe him. And it'd be easy to judge on this side going, see, they don't really believe him, and we really believe him, but the reality is we're just as fickle. And depending on whether it's a good day or a bad day, or whether Jesus has showed up or in the way that we want him to, some days we really think Jesus is great. Other days we're just not that interested in him. And Jesus is looking out over a city and looking out over thousands of years of history of people, and what he knows is we're just a fickle bunch. And as I was thinking about that and thinking about this story and thinking about the next one we were going to look at also that has to do with Jesus weeping, I started thinking about this. I want to believe, but we don't just think that's the category all of us are in. We all really kind of, well, most of us are church people. We really do want to believe in this. We really try really hard. And we're going, Jesus, help me with my unbelief. Like, we really do want to believe these things. And yet, we don't always. Our lives don't always reflect that. And that's not to shame you in any way. It's just the reality for all of us. We all say, well, not all of us, many of us in this room say, we believe that Jesus is God's son, and he died to take away the sins of the world, and he came back to life, all those things. But even those of us who really, really say we believe that deep down, I'm going to be honest for everybody else who's not that. There are days and moments where we really wonder. Right? There's just times where we wonder. And then I was thinking about people who just, particularly in the world we live in right now, who blatantly don't believe. Like, and they're in this place of vitriol even. Right? Like, you can post something on social media somewhere, which isn't helpful in any way for anyone, I don't think, that, hey, I'm praying for you, and then there's just a lineage of people that say they don't need your prayers. Why would you talk to that fairy tale God? You know what I'm talking about, right? Like, there's just a world where even if you talk about this belief, there literally is an army, a battalion ready to beat you down for that belief. And you go, where does that come from? Why? If God's not real, why are you so angry at him? Right? And why are you so angry at me for believing it? So there's just like this really weird, convoluted deal where we think we believe, we want to believe, we try to believe, and then we got a whole bunch of other people who tell us we're really, really silly for believing, and you go, maybe they're onto something. And so I'm going to give you some generalized understanding of why people don't believe and why people have turned to atheism or agnosticism, or why we as Christians have a really hard time believing. And believe it or not, I believe, I use that word a lot there, it's all for the same reason. And I'm going to walk you through it because it's the way that all of our relationships kind of fall down. And so it's going to take a second right up on board. You might be familiar with this because we've talked about it occasionally a couple times over the last couple of years. But as a blanket statement for the majority of people, and I'm going to go 80, 90%, maybe a little higher, for the majority of people, the reason they do not believe in God. You ready for this? This is the reason we struggle with our belief. Okay, this is a blanket statement. I'm just going to lay it out there. You can agree or disagree, but you have to disagree in your head because I'm the one with the microphone. Not fair. Yeah. Here's why people don't believe. You ready for this? Agnostics, atheists, all those things. The reason that people have decided and stood, not because they have all the scientific facts, right? Not because they've put together and they've discovered the paper out there that says there is no God, right? It's not like they found like the hidden book that declares that, right? The reason people don't believe. You ready? One reason. Because of unmet expectations. Because God hasn't met their expectations. Right? For all of us. Even if we really want to believe in Jesus, try to believe in Jesus, when we struggle, the reason we struggle is because God hasn't met the expectations that we think he should have met. Maybe it has to do with evil. Well, God, I would expect if you're real, there'd be no evil in this world. Or maybe it has to do with the fact that you can't see him. Well, God, if you were real, then it would make sense that you would make yourself blatantly real to me, right? Or maybe it's because of cancer. God, if you were real, then that cancer would go away, or it would never have existed in the first place. Maybe it's because you've had some horrific trauma in your life. God, if you were real, then that would not have happened to me. Right? Whatever it is, we have some expectation of how God should display himself for us. We have some idea of what God should look like, how he should be, and how he should perform for us, and how he should talk to us, how he should make himself known, and how he should make this world the way that we think it should be. Right? We all have this understanding, regardless of our belief system, that there's an expectation of what our world should look like and how it should be, and when God doesn't meet that expectation, there must be one of two issues. Either God's not very competent, or very loving, which why in the world we worship him, or God doesn't exist. If God doesn't do what I think he should do because God, for example, there's evil in the world, and I don't think there should be evil in the world, and if there's evil in the world, it's either because God doesn't really care about people, not interested in that God, or he's not even real. So I can't worship him, right? So for all of us, 95%, there's another reason we don't believe, we'll get to it at the very end, but for the majority of us in our world, the reason we don't believe in God is because he hasn't met the expectations that we think a God should meet. You know, there's some interesting things to point out there. Like, one is, why do we think we get to determine how God should act? Or why do we think God should do certain things for us? Just real quick observation. This is for Christians, not for non-Christians. Right? Who in the world gets to decide that you get to be in charge and tell God how he should behave? Do you understand in that situation, God's not God, you are? He's just a servant. He's a genie in a bottle, and if he does what you want, then he must be God. But if he does what he wants, he's subservient to you, which wouldn't make sense that he would be God anyway. Right? So this idea that because God hasn't met the expectations, there's evil in the world, we don't like evil, so therefore the God can't exist. Somebody died, and I don't want them to die, they should have died too early, God shouldn't have done that, God must not exist. Right? In all those categories, we sit on our pedestal and tell God how he should perform, and if he performs correctly, we'll say he's God and worship him. We'll wave palms at him. But the minute God stops doing that, it must be that God's not worth worshiping or he's not real. But in all those categories, we are the judge and we are the jury and God is the one on trial. Now, if you're to step back for a second and think about that. Now, as Christians, as non-Christians, you're going, I got a bunch of other stuff. But if those of us who believe that God is real and we put him on trial because he doesn't perform correctly, then we haven't really made him God or king or Lord. We've made him servant. And we've made ourselves God and king and Lord. So we got all that we got to deal with. We won't resolve all that today. Just some observations, right? But we go, God, we have these expectations, and if you meet them, we'll worship you, and we'll think you're good. If you don't, it must be because either you're not good or we won't worship you. Now, with anything, and this is really important for you if you don't believe in God, for even relationally, here's what happens when you have unmet expectations. This is in every category, right? What happens next as a result of unmet expectations is it leads you to disappointment. This isn't a shocker. You have an unmet expectation. You thought that the Eagles were going to win, and then they didn't. Just disappointment. right? You thought your spouse was going to be home at 6, and they got home at 6:30, and dinner was cold. Just leads to disappointment, right? You had an expectation, it wasn't met, and now you're disappointed, right? Now, disappointment, unkept long enough, here's what it just does to you. This isn't a surprise. This isn't just for Christians. This is for all people, right? Disappointment may lead you to be angry. Anger. Right? This is just psychology at its simplest. When you have an unmet expectation, you're disappointed. When you're disappointed long enough, by the 4th time you have an expectation for your husband to be home at 6 for dinner. I know it sounds misogynistic that I just made this about the wife cooking. Sorry about that. And they don't show up. What do? You get angry. Now, you stay angry long enough, what is it going to do? It's going to make you bitter. Right? Now there's this bitterness welling up inside of you. You have that bitterness long enough, it's going to lead you to resentment. This is where your eyes start rolling a lot. Right? And resentment, unkept long enough, always leads to contempt. Unmet expectation. Don't chase it long enough. Don't get it figured out long enough. Eventually, it leads you to this place of disdain and contempt. And when I would describe this contempt, the way that I would describe it is this. I would say it's this disdain of judgment, where you sit on a pedestal and you judge the people around you or that person who's made you feel these things. And you are put them in a place of you are judge and you are jury and you are executioner, and you have determined their worth, their value, or how much they should get loved. Right? So John Gottman, really famous psychologist, and really looks at relationships. He says with over 95% success, within 3 minutes, he can tell you whether or not a couple is going to get divorced or stay married. And over those 3 minutes, all he's looking for is contempt. Because when you get to this place of contempt, the end is just near. You know, it's easy to think about that in terms of relationships. You don't have time to fix all your relationships today, so we're not looking at that in light of that. What we're looking at in light of is going, okay, all these people who don't believe God exists. You know, I don't know where they are in the category. I don't know if they're just a little disappointed because something bad happened, or if they're angry, or if they're bitter, or if they're just a little resentful, or if they're just full on contempt. But if we can just take all the people who don't believe in God, and these are their feelings either towards God, which is interesting. They don't believe in Him, but they have feelings towards Him. Or maybe they don't have feelings towards Him. They have feelings towards other people who believe in Him, and we can just put them all in those categories. And to be honest with you, even for those of us who are Christians, we can put all of ourselves in this place too. We can go, okay, God hasn't met our expectations. One thing to just point out there real quick. Why would we ever expect something from God He didn't promise for us? You ever thought about that? Like, we get so angry at God for things He never promised. In fact, what's interesting, if you read scriptures, God actually promises us some bad things. He actually says, in this world you will have trouble. You know, He goes, take heart, I've overcome the world. So He gives us a good picture. But He actually says, in this world you will have trouble. So we get trouble and we get angry at God because we have trouble. And He's going, no. He actually just met His expectation. He said you'd have trouble. Then you have trouble, and now we're going, no, God shouldn't do that. No, He actually said it would happen. So you're putting God on trial for things He never promised, right? But all of us in some of these categories, we go either we have unmet expectations with God. He didn't do that. He didn't save my marriage. He didn't free my kids from that. He didn't bring them back. He didn't give me that job. My house still foreclosed, whatever it is. And then we put ourselves in one of these categories. And once we get on this run, it is really hard to get off of it. And it is a downhill spiral till you are bitter and angry and no one wants to be around you. Which is scary, and so it makes sense. On the week before Easter, we would figure out how to overcome that. Because none of us want to be these kind of people. Right? Even if you feel that way about your spouse, you don't enjoy it. Your kids don't like watching it. So you go, well, how in the world do we get out of this? And I go, okay, let's think about this in terms of God. How do we, particularly for Christians and non-Christians, there's still some really worthwhile stuff to work through here with us. How do we go from one of these other categories back to being okay with God? And the simple solution, especially for those of you who are realists or pessimists even, which in my opinion, that's the same category. And you go, no, I'm just a realist. I'm like, okay, whatever. You know, I'm just a realist. Oh, okay, gotcha. Let me get some more of that water out of your glass because it's about ate full. No, it's empty. Yeah, now it is. Now it is. Yeah. Right. So, to those of you, you go, well, the simple solution would be, and this would be really simple for your marriage, for your relationships, go, just don't have any expectations at all. Just throw away expectations. No expectations. If you don't have any expectations, guess what? They won't be met. Right? Just no expectations, and that would be kind of nice, but the reality is you're not going to do that, and it's really hard, and it's hard not to have expectations. Do you know what a better solution is? Actually, just communicate your expectations. Let's just clarify what your expectations really are. And I'm not talking about in your head, I'm talking about out loud. Can we talk honestly with the people you have expectations of? Could you just put those out there? Now, a couple of things are going to happen when that happens. One, many of the things that we're disappointed, angry, bitter, resentful of, we don't even know. We actually even pause long enough to realize that what we're really, our expectation that we had was that our spouse would say we look nice in that outfit. But they don't even know that that's an expectation of them, and yet they're being judged and a whole bunch of other stuff because that is an expectation. So one, it would just go, it makes sense that we just communicate whatever those expectations are. So one, it'd help us clarify these things in our heart. Now here's the other thing that it would do. It actually reveals some pretty messy selfishness in us. You see, we have a lot of expectations that we don't want to actually say out loud. Because when we say them out loud, we go, okay, yeah, that is a little ridiculous of me. Yeah, that probably is unreasonable. Yeah, that probably does require that person or my spouse to be perfect, right? But it would just make sense at some point we would just clarify what our expectations are. So if you have an unmet expectation with God, that has put you in one of these categories. If you're a believer or not a believer, could you just pause for a second and figure out what that expectation is? And I'm not talking about later. I'm talking about we're just going to take a minute right now on the awkwardness of this because we're going to get busy later and just go, if you believe God's real, where has he disappointed you? And if you don't believe he's real, what do you expect him to do to make himself show that he's real to you? Because there's something. So could you just take a second and just clarify those again? If you believe in a God, where has he disappointed you? What have you expected of him? Is it in your marriage, your family? Is it in your health, your job? What is it? Could you just literally put some words in your head on that? And if you don't believe God exists, what would be the expectation you have of him for you to believe it? Some of you aren't participating, so I'll give you a few more seconds. Okay, so now that you figured that out, the reality is it doesn't really matter. Okay, if you have unmet expectations, you're going to continue to have them with God. And if you're going to expect God to show himself off in a certain way for you to believe in him, that might not happen either. It just makes sense so we can at least put some words around it so we can understand what we're judging God for in our little seat. But here's what I'd say. This is kind of the big idea this morning, okay? It won't take me too long to work through it, maybe another 40 minutes or so. The big idea is God has no interest in just meeting your expectations. That's not his interest at all. His objective and goal in life is not to meet your expectations. So when you think, well, God's got to meet my expectations, just want to go ahead and tell you that is not God's goal at all. He has no interest in meeting your expectations. And here's why. Your expectations are way too small, and way too simplistic. You just want God to give you a new job with $10,000 more, which will help you for about 3 months till you mismanage it. Right? You just want God to make this relationship really work so that, or whatever that is, so that you and him or her can be happy for a few more years. Right? New job. God, you just want God to let your health feel a little bit better for the next 10 years so you can die with better health. Right? All of our expectations we have of God, you just want God to deal with that one evil problem right in front of us, that poverty that's happening right over there. We want God to deal with that. And all those things are really good things, and all those things are real injustice that should be fixed, and he wants his people to be in the middle of them. But those are really low expectations for God. Like I told you last week, and we'll continue to work through this as we're trying to figure out how to believe in him. God is not interested in just answering all your questions. and meeting your expectations. He's interested in you and him forever. You and him forever. That's his goal. Now, that's not to discount your pain. That's not to discount whatever you have going on. And there's this really great case study, a little microcosm in the scriptures that just points us out. So I'm just going to read the whole thing and make some observations about it and go, okay, there's some people that have some really bad stuff happening. God is not going to meet their expectations. And the reason he's not going to meet their expectations is because he's actually going to exceed them. So we're going to see this neat little passage, and it makes sense that Jesus shows us how he wept in Luke chapter 19. There's one other time that Jesus weeps, and we're going to look at that passage now. So we're going to be in John chapter 11. I'm going to be reading pretty quick, so keep up. It'll be on the scriptures, or be on the board, on the screens. I'm reading from the NIV version. So this is John, one of Jesus' buddies, and he's going to tell us a story that happens about 3 months before Jesus enters Jerusalem this last time. He's in Bethany at his buddy's house, or this is where this story takes place. John chapter 11, beginning in verse 1. Now a man named Lazarus was sick. Some of you know the story, but don't leave me. Don't go ahead of it. Just stay with me. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. So John's going to give us context for first century people and later. Hey, by the way, guys, this Mary, whose brother Lazarus now lay sick, was the same one who poured perfume on the Lord and wiped his feet with her hair. So he's just giving us some context. This would be like a footnote. This would help people in the first century understand what's going on and believe it even more. So the sister sent word to Jesus, Lord, the one you love is sick. Okay? So here's what happens. Lazarus is very sick. This is not good in a world that God should be, leading and directing and lording over. People shouldn't be sick, right? That's not fair. I don't understand it. But Jesus' buddy Lazarus is sick. When he heard this, Jesus said, this sickness will not end in death. Just so you know it does. So that gets confusing. Now it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it. So Jesus said something. It will not end in death. They go, okay. Woo, good. Jesus says not. We got a new expectation. Jesus said it won't end in death. That we can count on. That's really good news. Not going to be good news in a little while. So, verse 5. No, Jesus, watch this, loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So what we know, John's going, these are people Jesus loved. These are not Jesus' enemies. He doesn't want anything bad to ever happen to them. He loves them. You understand that? No, Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. Now watch this next word. So, verse 6. So, when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days. Understand this? That word so is really important here. That actually means it is combining the last sentence with this sentence. So means what he's about to tell you is as a result of him loving Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. So John says, he loves them, therefore he stayed in a different town. As a result of loving Lazarus, Mary, and Martha, he doesn't go to fix him. No, Jesus loved them, so he doesn't go and help. Do you understand how crazy this is? Like, this doesn't meet any of our expectations. And literally John's going, it is as a result of loving these people that Jesus decides to stay where he is. So when he heard that Lazarus was sick as a result of loving him, he stayed where he was 2 more days. This guy's on his deathbed, and he decides to stay in a different town. Verse 7, and then he said to the disciples, let's go back to Judea. Lazarus is in Bethany. He's about to die, so let's go to a new town. Let's go to Chuck E. Cheese, whatever it is, right? I don't think you go to Chuck E. Cheese, for sure. That place is purgatory. For sure. All sorts of germs, hepatitis, all over those pizzas, yeah. Verse 8, but Rabbi, they said, a short while ago, the Jews there tried to stone you, and yet you're going back? Jesus answered, are there not 12 hours of daylight? Anyone who walks in the daytime will not stumble, for they see by this world's light. It is when a person walks at night that they stumble, for they have no light. And they're going, we said you're going to die, and you're telling us a science lesson? Really? Here's what he's saying here. He's going, look. You are still trying to view this through the wrong lens. You're trying to view this through what you understand as light and truth, and you are missing a whole other picture. Like, you are worried about someone killing the God of the universe. C.S. Lewis says that's a lot like asking a lamb to defend a lion. Right? Like, you're worried about all those things. He's going, look, you don't get it yet. Just trust me. You don't get it yet. Just trust me. And we don't like that. And yet we say it to our kids all the time. We just don't say it as nice. We say, it's because I told you so. Right? Just go, no, you don't understand. You walk in darkness, not in light. That's what I'm going, because I told you so. He's just nice. He's going, no, you just don't get it yet. You can trust me. No, you should go to bed at 9. Right? No, you shouldn't eat all that. No, Josh, you shouldn't let them eat 12 cookies during the daddy daughter dance. Wish I could tell you more of that story, we don't have time, but I really do. Maybe for a different day. Verse 11. After he said this, he went on to tell them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I am going there to wake him up. His disciples replied, oh, Lord, if he sleeps, he will get better. Now, he's dead. Remember? A couple of things here. Jesus is pointing out that death isn't the big issue for us. Like, this isn't the biggest road obstacle. Remember, his goal wasn't to fix all your problems, solve all your solutions. His goal was you and him forever. Meaning, death isn't going to be the obstacle. We get to talk a lot more about that next week. Please come back. Jesus had been speaking of his death, but his disciples thought he meant natural sleep. So then he told them plainly, Lazarus is dead. Now, remember just earlier he said, don't worry, Lazarus won't die. They're going, wait, you said he won't die, and now he's dead. Does that mean Jesus doesn't keep his promises? Sure sounds like that. And for your sake, I'm glad. Okay, I told you he wasn't going to die. Now he's dead, and I'm going to tell you he's dead, and I'm glad he's dead. Boy, I said, well, God, I want to worship, right? I was not there so that you may believe. So you understand this. He's not giving us a picture of why all this has happened. One very specific reason. He actually wants to help us with our belief. But let us go to him. Verse 16. Then Thomas, also known as Didymus, said to the rest of the disciples, this is so good, so good. Let us go also that we may die with him. Remember I told you that there's those realists that aren't pessimists, but, they just call it as they see it and all that kind of stuff. That's Thomas. Now, you notice what it says here? It says to the rest of the disciples. He doesn't say this to Jesus. He actually says this to all of his buddies around there. Great, let's go so we can die with Jesus. You go, that's so terrible, and that is so how we act when we're somewhere in this category, right? We're contemptuous, we're resentful, we're bitter, and you know what we really like? We love sarcasm. It works really good in our marriages, don't you think? It's just the best way to communicate. There's English or, Spanish, and then there's just sarcasm. And what I usually do when I work with couples during, premarital counseling, I spend a good couple of days just helping them communicate passive-aggressively with their sarcasm. I'm like, it just helps so much. Helps so much, right? I teach them that, then I teach them to use words like fine and okay. Then they're set. They're set forever, right? Fine, let's go die with him. On his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. That means he's been dead for a while. Now, Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. He is dead. He's been dead for multiple days, and all these people have now showed up to mourn alongside them. This is sad. I don't know where they are. I don't know if they're disappointed. I don't know if they're angry. I don't know if they're bitter. I don't know if they're resentful. I don't know if they're contemptuous towards this God or the God of the universe, whatever it is. But there is a lot of emotions going here because they had some expectations and they weren't met. And there are people dead, right? When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet with him, but Mary stayed home. Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been there, here's some expectations. She is communicating these expectations clearly. If you had been here, my brother would not have died. Jesus had an expectation of you. He could have been healed and you could have done it. And I expected you as the Lord of the universe to take care of my brother. If you would have been here, he would not have died. But then she goes, but now I know. But I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask. So you got a couple of things. One, she declares her unmet expectation. But then she also reveals that she has some curiosity about whether or not God cares for her brother. So now she still knows that he's powerful. So this isn't her saying God's not all powerful. A lot of us live in that category, right? We go, okay, there's a sun, it's out there. Somebody sustained it, somebody created it. I believe in a creator God, okay? And if there's a creator God who could speak things into existence, I would say 80% of this room believes in that. We believe that there's a creator God who speaks these things into existence, and he can bend and shape things. So that's not our problem. Our problem is wondering whether or not he'll bend and shape things for us. Our problem is wondering if he actually cares about us. So in this moment, Martha's saying, God, I know that you're capable. I just don't know if you're willing. I just don't know if you care enough, right? Do whatever you ask. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Now, they understand this whole idea of resurrection and all that kind of stuff. Like, there's been this belief, and Jesus has been talking about this, that this world isn't all there is and that God is going to make all things right. He's going to bring the kingdom of heaven to earth. This is all good news, all good story. This is where Martha gets a bigger picture of, yeah, we get this. Watch what she says. Martha answered, I know he'll rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this? Yes, Lord, she replied. I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who is to come into the world. So, Jesus goes, okay, you have all these expectations. You want me to fix Lazarus. You want me to make everybody happy. You want me to make sure everybody gets fed. But that's not why I came. I didn't come to answer all your questions and meet all your expectations. I came so that you may believe and have everlasting life. So in the middle of this moment, Lazarus is dead, right? Lazarus is dead, been dead 4 days, and Jesus takes a moment to talk to Martha about priorities. And he's going, look, I understand all the sadness, all that's going on, but let me be real clear about what I'm interested in here. Do you understand what he's interested in here? He's not interested in fixing all the problems, because there will be more problems. Lazarus will die again, right? He's not interested in doing all that stuff. You will have trouble, and you will probably die, right? So that's for all of us. That's for all of us. So Jesus is going, I'm not interested in just fixing your temporary issues, because there are greater issues. And hey, Martha, here's the issue. I actually want you to live a resurrected life forever. Do you believe this? And she goes, yes, I believe this. And then, I believe that you're the Messiah, the Son of God. Now it says this, verse 28. After she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary aside. No, remember, Lazarus is still dead. So she understands, gets this picture and going, yep, this is the picture that most of us have to say. When our people die, when we have sickness, we just have to go. There'll be one day where there'll be no more tears and no more pain and no more sorrow. My expectations were that you were going to fix this in this world, but maybe it's not in this world. Maybe you want to exceed those expectations, and what you're actually doing is you're providing all your healing for all eternity. And so Martha's getting this, but Lazarus is still dead. Now we got another sister who also has this whole situation going on here, right? After she said this, she went back and called her sister Mary aside. The teacher is here, and she said, and he's asking for you. When Mary heard this, she got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet entered the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. So he's going back to meet him. When the Jews who had been with Mary in the house, comforting her, noticed how quickly she got up and went out, they followed her, supposing she was going to the tomb to mourn there. So Mary's still at the house. She's going to meet Jesus. All these people that are wailing and screaming and crying, just, horrible situation. They all go with Mary, thinking that she needs more comfort, right? Because she's feeling all these emotions. When Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, here it is again. She declares her expectations. Lord, if you had been here, our brother would not have died. She just gets it out there. Hey, here's what I'm dealing with. Here's my disappointment. Here's where this anger, bitterness, resentment's kind of creeping in. If you would have been here, Jesus, this would have been fixed. If you would have been here, he would not have died. Verse 33. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Do you understand this? Mary just told Jesus he didn't meet her expectations, and he doesn't go, how dare you? You don't understand, because I said so. Whatever those things. It actually says he sees her in the middle of these feelings and these emotions, and it says he is deeply moved and even troubled. That means to be, another word that's used there would be agitated, but not in a negative sense, like stirred up, like anxiety, like he's troubled by this. God of the universe can fix all things, and he is troubled by what his friends are feeling. Where have you laid him? He asked. Come and see, Lord, they replied. Verse 35. Here it is again. Jesus wept. Now, this is the second time we see that verse, and that verse literally means Jesus cried, not this big. Sometimes I joke about weepings like ugly tears, and it is, lip quivering. But when you really look at this passage and look at that Greek word, it literally means that he was inconsolable, but it was a quiet cry. It wasn't for other people. He wasn't wailing and theatric like other people there. He was deeply moved, and he wept. Now, if you know the story, Jesus is about to bring Lazarus back to life. Right? He's going to fix all this. He's going to fix all this. He's going to exceed everybody's expectation, and it's going to be glorious. He's going to fix all this. So why in the world does he weep if he's going to fix it? And this is so important, guys, for those of us who struggle with evil and understanding where God is and all that. This is the God of the Scriptures. In the middle of this moment, it actually says that he weeps. Like he is in so much pain. He is deeply troubled. He is sad that they are sad. So you go, well, what is he sad about if he's going to fix it? He's sad that they're experiencing it. He's sad that they have this range of emotions. He looks at it and goes, these weren't my expectations either. My expectations that it'd be you and me forever, and there'd be no tears, no pain, no sorrow. Then evil crept in and we had to fix it. And he weeps. So it doesn't fix our solutions, doesn't fix all this stuff, but in the middle of whatever it is, whatever those things are, what we know about God is he's actually really sad. Whatever happened to you as a 7-year-old, God weeps for it. Whatever's going on in your marriage, he's weeping. The fact that you lost your grandmother before you thought you should, or your mother, or your daughter, or your son, or that accident happened to you, whatever those things are, you got that diagnosis, he's not going, suck it up, I'll take care of it. Here, shortest scripture, all the Bible, I would tattoo it on your arm if you're going to get a tattoo. Jesus wept. Meaning, just because we don't understand him, just because he's not meeting our expectations, doesn't mean he doesn't care. He's weeping. Now watch what it says after that. After verse 35, it continues. It says, then the Jews said, see how he loved him. But some of them said, could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying? Right? So you got two different sides. Wow, he loved him. Oh, he's such a loving God. Well, if he's so loving, why did he let it happen? Right? It's that problem with evil. If he's so loving, why does evil happen? Because either he's not capable of fixing it, so they're going, yeah, if he's loving, then he should have fixed this. Right? That conundrum that we're still facing, the one that says, well, if God is all loving, then why does he let bad things happen? It's either because he's not loving or he's not capable. In this moment, he is both loving and capable, and yet it still happens. Watch this. Jesus, once more deeply moved. So John's going, you got to understand this about Jesus. He really, really does care. In the middle of these moments, he really does care. Came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. Take away the stone, he said. But Lord, said Martha, the sister of the dead man, by this time there's a bad odor, for he has been in there 4 days. Right? And King James Version says he stinketh, which is so funny to me. Then Jesus said, did I not tell you, watch this, if you believe, not that I'll fix all your problems, but watch what he says. Did I not tell you, if you believe, here's what I promise you. Here's this promise. We can't hold him accountable for things he doesn't promise, but we can hold him accountable for things that he does. Did I not tell you, if you believe, you will see the glory of God? You will see God in his fullness in all situations. Not that he'll fix them, not that he'll give you away, but you will see the glory of God. So they took away the stone. Then Jesus looked up and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. Now watch what he says next. I knew that you always hear me, so I'm not surprised by it, God. God, thanks for hearing me. Not that I'm saying that because you usually don't hear me. Watch, because he says, but I said that this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me. God, I'm not saying you don't always believe me, because you always believe me. I'm saying this out loud for all these other people, right? So that they would understand that they could trust me and believe in me because I believe in you. They may believe that you sent me. When he said this, Jesus called in a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. Now, if you read some really good commentaries, I can't ever talk about this and not mention this. Most commentaries, a lot of these guys will go, Jesus had to use his name because they were shared tombs. Do you understand this? That kind of power that Jesus speaks, and these are shared tombs. I don't know if you've seen Night of the Living Dead or any of those other zombie movies, right? So if he just goes, hey, dead guy, come out, it is a really crazy story, right? So in this he says Lazarus, really important because nobody else got permission to come out, right? And Lazarus, come out, goose, and then he ran, right? Then the dead man came out. The dead man came out. His hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen, see, Night of the Living Dead, and a cloth around his face. Jesus said to them, take off the grave clothes and let him go. And everybody's like, oh, you know. Oh, don't leave him on, right? Maggots and, oh, right? And he takes them off, and he looks fine, right? Now watch what it says. Therefore, many of the Jews who had come to visit Mary and had seen what Jesus did, they believed in him. Didn't meet their expectations. Oh, no, they didn't. He let him die. He exceeded them. And here's what I can promise you, because this is what Jesus promises. This is what Paul says about Jesus. He says, nail to him, Jesus, who will do immeasurably more than we can ever hope or imagine. Meaning, whatever your expectations are, Jesus is going to do more than that. Whatever you think's great, he's going to exceed that. Now, it's not in the way that you think he is, not in the exact same time. He might not fix that problem the way that you want it fixed, but you go, okay, God, here's the expectations I have, but I'm going to lay those expectations down, and here's the new plan. I'm going to wake up every day just expecting to see what you said, that those who believe in me will see my glory. So what would it look like if we're Christians to go, I'm no longer going to expect them to fix what's in front of me. I'm just going to expect that I'm going to get up today and I'm going to say, this is the day that the Lord has made. I'm going to rejoice and be glad in it. And I'm going to walk expecting to see his glory. Because he says, those who believe in him will see his glory. Meaning, those of you who believe in him will see him at work every day. Now, it might not be the way that you ask him to work, but what Tim Keller says, but it will be the way you would ask him to work if you could see all the things he sees and knows all the things he knows. So instead of going, we have new expectations. And the only expectation we have is we can count on him to hold the promises that he made true. And what he says is, those who believe in me will see my glory. So what would it look like for you to go, okay, God, all the other things you didn't promise, I'm not going to hold you to. But if you said I'm going to see your glory today, I'm going to get up and I'm going to look for it. And I'm going to look underneath every rock. I'm going to look in every interaction, and I'm going to look in every story. I'm going to look behind the counter at Sunoco. I'm going to look at Giant in that line. I'm going to look everywhere, because you say, if I believe in you, I will see your glory. So that's a promise he's made. That's an expectation you can have. You can't hold him accountable to things that he didn't promise, but you can hold him accountable for the things that he did. And he said, if you believe in him, you'll see my glory. And in this moment, as a result of other people seeing his glory, they believed. But I told you that just 95% of us, 90% of us, the reason we struggle is because he hasn't met our expectations. There's another group. Let me read about them to you. Verse 46, but some of them went to the Pharisees and told them what Jesus had done. Then the chief priests and the Pharisees called a meeting of the Sanhedrin. This is all the religious control freaks, right? They liked their power and their authority. They didn't want to trust anybody else. They had everything they needed in front of them. They had the money. They had the keys. They had everything, right? They had all the fame. What are we accomplishing, they asked. Here is this man performing many signs. If we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him. And then the Romans will come and take away both our temple and our nation. So it's not that they didn't believe in him or trust him or worship him because he wasn't meeting their expectations. They didn't believe in him because they actually liked being Lord of their own life. And for many of us, it's not that we don't think there's a creator God. The problem is in order to trust that creator, it would mean we'd have to surrender ourselves as being in charge. So let me just ask you one quick question on this, and then the band's going to come up and we're going to sing a song about Jesus and his beautiful name and what he does, because it's all about him being Lord. It's all about his glory. Some of us just go, nope, I just want to be in charge of my own thing. Don't want him to take away my temple. Don't want him to take away my power. Don't want him to take away those things I like, my computer, my screens, that relationship. Don't want him to take it away. Don't want him to take away that bottle. I like my life. I want to control it. I just would offer one quick question for you. This is some more emotional intelligence for you. How's that currently working for you? Do you like living in secret? Do you like not having friends? Do you like being angry? Do you like being exhausted by having to be in control all the time? So this isn't about whether or not you believe he's going to meet your expectations. This is about you having to relinquish control, and the reality is, and this is what you have to hear, that control that you believe you have is a complete illusion. And what's going to happen is one day you're going to get that diagnosis, you're going to get that phone call, and everything you thought you were lorded over, all those things, this is going to come crashing down. And that's not me trying to fix you or scare you. I'm just going, that's just the reality of all of our lives. And at that moment, I'd say, if you're not there yet, you're going, I want my temple, I want my power, I want my stuff. I just want you to hear this. You are welcome here. You're welcome here. So when those things happen, because what Jesus says is, in this world you will have trouble. When the rains come, when that happens, just want to hear you. I want you to hear this. I want you to hear this. Jesus will meet you with open arms, and so will we. So if today's that day where you go, yep, I want to surrender my life, we're here for it. If it's next month, we're here for you. If it's 15 years from now, and finally you go, yep, I'm so exhausted, Jesus is there for you, and so are we. And so would you stand with me as we sing this song about that Jesus who will be waiting for you whenever you decide to show up.